Welcome back to Blues Garden Tips. This is my 2022 garden harvest video. I sowed seeds starting February 1st for onions, February 15th for peppers, tomatoes, and whatnot got March 15th. Transplanted and planted outside on March 17th for potatoes, around the 1st of May for everything else. I had a pretty good year, although nowhere near what last year was. June was our first harvest, and that was peas. I got a couple of harvests of potatoes, raspberries. Everything in general was off, and that's mostly due to 5 weeks or so of drought and high heat in July. That really did a number on the garden. I planted about twice as many plants as normal, as last year, and got way less, probably 60% or so of last year's harvests. I also added a second garden that was down on Cape Cod. Had some success there. It was a little shadier. It was also easier to keep it wet. There was a little more rain there. It was a overall decent garden down there, much smaller, 7 or 8 plants and some herbs. It was later in terms of season. The tomatoes didn't come in there until the 1st or so of August, and that's a full month behind the garden back home. I'm pleased with some things, very, very pleased with my onions. I had a much better harvest. I planted more onions, and they did very well. They survived the drought well. The raspberries were off about half of what normal is. The lettuces really had a tough time, but I did a second planting of that, so that worked out. I got to figure a way to do lettuces at the Cape Garden. In general, onions, carrots, and potato did best. Raspberries were off again about half. Tomatoes were at least half. Peppers were much less. But I think the root crops did better. They weren't burnt by the high heat, and they were underground and probably stayed a little better in terms of cooler and a little more moist. So maybe that's why they did better. I guess in general, my takeaway from this year was if we're going to deal with that kind of heat and temperature, I need to figure a way to make sure I'm watering much more often. I think overall, I'm going to put in less varieties and more of the proven vegetables that I get. I may experiment with a couple of things, but for the most part, I'm going to stay with what I know works in terms of varieties. And I may experiment a little bit with where I plant them in the garden, move some of the plants to some of the sunnier or more wind-prone areas. Probably the underground, like my potatoes and onions, I can move those grow bags into a place that I can that can be a little more accepting. I'm going to roll into now some of the numbers. It'll be real quick. I'm not going to read every single thing off. You can stop it if you want to see. But in general, potatoes were about 2/3 of what I harvested last year. Onions were about even, but then I planted twice as many, so that shouldn't be a good thing. Lettuce is okay. Cucumber, less than I wanted. The carrot did very well. The zucchini and squash did not. Disappointed in that. Herbs were okay. Peppers, I got to figure a way to get some more bell pepper. My cherry tomatoes did great on the Cape. And I'm going to figure on some larger slicing tomatoes. In general, like I said, doubled the number of plants and ended up with just under 300 pounds, 135 kilos. And that's about 60% of what last year was. Please remember to like and subscribe for more Blues Garden Tips. Thank you very much.